You know, when I received my doctoral degree back in 1970, my mother wrote me a little poem telling me how proud she was of, that I was the first person in my family to even ever set foot inside of higher education, let alone get a bachelor's degree and then a master's degree and then a doctoral degree and so on. She just couldn't be more proud. And she said, I didn't really know how far that you would go, but somehow I knew you would touch a star. She said, all I knew, and this was such great parenting advice, she said, a mother can but guide, then step aside. Guide and step aside. Allow them, even if the things that they seem to be doing, in your opinion, are damaging or deleterious to what your objectives are, it's still this whole idea of just allowing those souls and not putting a leash or not putting a fence around or not putting it in a box. And it's one of the things I can say most proudly of all 8 of my children, that I never went in there and told them, this is what you have to do, this is how you have to do it, you have to do it to please me. I know when my oldest son was in, my oldest son is a son that I adopted from was my wife's first marriage. And he came over, he was in England for a while, and then he came over when he was 16, and it was time for him to go to register for college. We got him into a college. He was about 18. And my wife was just all concerned. She said, well, you're going to take Shane over and you're going to have him, you're going to show him how to go through registration. You're going to show him how to do all of that. And I said, I'll take him over to the school. Yeah, I'll help him through that. And we got in the car, and this was his first day actually in America in higher education. And we arrived at the campus, and I said, this is the campus. He said, yeah, but he said, where do I go? How do I do it? I said, well, there's a whole group of people over there. It looks like there's some lines and all of that. I remember my first day in college when I had to register. I went where all the people were, and you'll probably figure that thing out. And I said, meanwhile, I've got a tennis match at 9 o'clock, so I'll just, and I just let him go off and figure it out. She was just mortified that I wouldn't walk him through the steps and take him through that. And you don't learn that way. Guide, protect, make sure they're safe, then step aside and allow them to go out there and make their own mistakes and so on. The soul, their soul, will appreciate that. And as you could even hear when my daughters got up here and were talking, they were never, ever told that they had to do anything to please me or anyone else. You know, if they came home from school and they were 4 or 5 years old and they say, Billy doesn't like me, Billy doesn't like me. I said, well, how do you feel about you? Well, I'm fine. Well, then what do you care? Well, Billy told me that I was dumb. I said, well, that's just Billy's opinion. I said, tomorrow, Billy could come in and say that you're a car. Would you be a car if Billy said you were a car? Told you to get down on all fours, took out a funnel, put gasoline in your ear? Would that make you a car? Well, I could never be a car, Dad. That's so stupid. I said, well, you can never be anything other than what you choose to believe about yourself. That's just a way of interacting so that as adults, they understand that. That's anytime anyone tries to come into your life and tell you what you should be or what you can't be or how to do things and so on. That's, you can get the body to conform, you can get them to do things the way you want them to do, you can get them to conduct themselves in the ways that you've directed them to be. But inside, the soul just says, all I want to do is expand. I just want to keep going. I want to keep on growing. And the minute that you put it step, you've gone from infinite to finite. And that which is infinite cannot even recognize anything called finite. Because the minute it does, it's no longer infinite. It's now part of something that is finite. So that's your soul. And a very important thing to remember, especially with your children. Every place that I've ever spoken, I always hear parents talk about children and how inconsiderate they are when they say, you're not the boss of me. You laugh because you've all heard it or you've said it yourselves. You can't tell me what to do. I'm my own person. You're not the boss of me. Who do you think you are? That is not a bratty child being disrespectful to their elder. It is a soul saying, you don't get to decide what I am. The soul of the child, the soul of you, has always resisted anybody putting them in a box, because the soul is beginninglessness and endlessness. And the moment that you try to stick it in here, tell it what to be, it fights that because it's infinite. Infinity can't be finite. It's the opposite of infinite.